And Aussies love their coffee, but would you give over your personal data to pay for it instead of cash?
Yeah, Shira Cafe has opened on Brown University's campus in Rhode Island, the US. Its unique offering to, well, overtired students who basically love free stuff, just let's be honest, is just that. Students hand over their name, phone number, email address, school details, professional interests, and then they get their coffee and they get some info from corporate sponsors who then pay the cafe to advertise on the cups, display digital ads in the store, offer meetups with company reps, that kind of thing. This is our starting point for taking stock tonight. Our panel is Stephen Schiller, CEO of the Digital CEO, previously the CEO of Facebook Australia, and Claire Kimball, the founder of The Squiz. Guys, welcome to Your Money Live, to Taking Stock. I was always told there's no such thing as a free lunch. And as the ex-CEO of Facebook, I'm interested in your thoughts on whether we should be giving personal data in exchange for coffee.
Well, I think it's a great idea. I love innovative businesses like this, and I love the story when I saw it. I'd love to visit this cafe myself. The truth is, everybody exchanges data all the time for things we see and we don't see. And what I love about this is it's making it explicit in the gig economy, so that digital natives that are already so used to exposing their personal data in so many ways are now essentially figuring out a way, how can I monetize this and how do I get something back explicitly?
Yes, I saw the assistant manager said she hasn't encountered a single student who was hesitant at all to give up their personal data. It's because they're younger.
Well, when you're in uni, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they're used to the idea that this is how the world works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think increasingly that is the way the world is going to work.
But that's a really interesting point, because we've never had a kind of a currency conversion before, to be able to say, okay, this is the concrete thing and here's my data, let's do an exchange. Claire, what do you think?
I'm sure that I give away my personal data probably on a daily basis for a lot less than a cup of coffee. So if there's some reward in it, go for it. But I think we've become so casual about it, and there's a level of comfort, I think. I remember when I was working in government agencies around Centrelink, particularly where data was such a, you just had to be so tight around it. And I was surprised when I went into retail how amenable customers were. If you're going to give me something I find useful, here's my stuff. And I think that's a good thing.
One thing I think about the Cambridge Analytica case that I took away, though, was just how much our data is worth to big companies and to the world out there. And it is actually crazy. That made people rethink, I thought, giving it away so cheaply, like they don't even have to work for it anymore.
Yeah,
You'd know more about this than anyone.
Well, certainly in aggregate, across hundreds of millions, billions of people, data is worth a lot. But individual data sometimes isn't worth quite as much as you think. So if you look, there is one place where data is given a price. That's YouTube, when you go to YouTube Red now. And you can get a subscription to YouTube Red for just a few dollars a month, and essentially it removes ads from your YouTube stream. And that's essentially saying, YouTube's saying, hey, it's worth just a few dollars a month for us to get that from you directly rather than get it through ads.
I find it fascinating that we are kind of the first real generation to be faced with this problem. So I kind of wonder about the next generation. Are our kids going to be just mortified at how much data we gave away for free? Are they going to be a lot smarter?
Yeah, does it come full circle? Yeah, exactly.
They might be, but...
What's the alternative? I mean...
Yeah, I guess that's right.
We're in that world now, and I think it's just a matter of being as safe as you possibly can and navigating it as carefully as you want to go.
It's just like, we're too young to remember, but there was an era when property rights were not well defined. You didn't necessarily know you had rights to a piece of property. It took hundreds of years for that to develop. And I think we're coming to the same age now where your digital rights are now just being defined, and it's going to take a few decades, I think, for us to figure this out.
Well, while all that's going on, there's actual hard stuff happening in the market. One of the other stories that took our fancy today was that NAB is now trialling AI facial recognition software for ATMs. So you go up, you don't need your card anymore, you still punch in your PIN, but it scans your face and says, okay, yes, you are who you say you are. I mean, what do we take from that? Do we trust the banks with all of this extra information as it comes up? Stephen, what do you think?
Look, I'm a big believer in facial recognition and biometrics for a couple of reasons. One is I think security is better when they're dealing with biometrics. Anybody can, for example, this is around your ATM and your PIN. Anybody can steal your PIN. It's not hard to do. Now they need your face as well. It gets a little tougher. So that's one thing. It's not just your face, it's actually your PIN you enter as well. That's what NAB is doing. I think the second thing is, biometrics are just going to become a way of life. I don't think we can hold it back. Having a little ID card or a license, I mean, how many times did you go into a club or pub when you were younger and you had a forged license? It's not hard to do, right? So it's, you know, that was easy back in the day, and it's probably not that hard today.
I didn't actually. I was a very good girl.
Were you?
Yep. Never did that.
Me too.
That just probably tells far too much about how boring my childhood was.
Nobody here ever had a phone ID.
I'm feeling significantly shamed now.
You might still need one.
I'm working on an iPhone 4 at the moment where about a third of the screen I can't actually see. So facial recognition is well beyond my sort of.
Does this also get us to the point where you don't have to type in passcodes for every single thing that you go into?
Well,
you go into every app, get your password.
Sure.
It's like you cannot remember that many passwords, and they change all the time.
Well,
does that get us to the point beyond that? Is that finally where we just?
Absolutely. I mean, biometrics. The good thing for consumers is it makes it more frictionless. So there's already fingerprint recognition on your iPhone. There's voice recognition for lots of services, including things like the ATO. When you call them up, you can simply identify yourself by your voice. So now facial recognition is just another part of that fabric around. We're moving beyond having a card in our hands, actually just using our biometrics to identify ourselves.
It does sound convenient, and it is convenient being able to just walk up and open your phone very easily and all that sort of stuff. But of course, there've got to be risks and costs involved. What do you think, Claire?
And there's fine lines too, I think, around what consumers are going to be comfortable with. I know in retail there's all sorts of concepts around, walking towards walls that will recognise who you are and being able to take your recommendations and present things to you, which I think we're a little bit away from not feeling creepy about that. But finding out where those boundaries.
We still feel creepy about body scans at the airport and stuff, don't we?
Yeah, and we're edging towards all sorts of things.
I mean,
apparently,
I'm just saying, apparently that's still a bit of a problem. Can we talk about, we've had protests by workers in Sydney and Melbourne. It's part of a broader scheme. We just mentioned in some of the news there. You've also got this issue of Woolies with extra labour costs because of the enterprise agreement that was voted up. We were looking today at the consumer confidence read, which is showing house prices down, petrol prices are up, consumers are not happy. It's just every day it's plugging away at this discontent in Australia. And it's not too dissimilar in the United States as well. What is the discontent about, do you think, you guys?
In terms of the economy today, I think there's a couple of things in Australia. One is, so much of our wealth is tied up in real estate. And I'm not an economist, but I'm the same way. I'm sure you guys are as well. And that creates anxiety when you're worried about interest rates and you're worried about the value of your home. So that's going to cause a lot of problems when markets start to top out. And then the other is, people are worried about their jobs and they want to make sure they have their jobs. We've got pretty low unemployment today, but things go in cycles, and I think people realize that. And I think there's there's the instability here around government as well. Leadership and having who's the Prime Minister today. Sometimes we don't even know. And that has international implications as well as on voters and consumers here in Australia.
I suppose that's it though. All of the reasons that we're given for high petrol prices and kind of, falling house prices, difficulty in the auction clearance rates. They're all wages issues. They're all good reasons and they make sense, but that doesn't stop the frustration, 100,000 people protesting in Melbourne, looking for better conditions and better pay. Do you kind of understand all this sort of discontent, as Brooke put it?
Look, I think when you feed all of those elements into heading into an election campaign and particular points in time and all sorts of instability, not just in Australia but across the world, we're heading towards a point where I don't buy the whole confidence thing into Wentworth that directly. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but there's definitely a sense around, like you said, property prices, even though property prices are probably still higher than they've been for so much time. Jobs are about as good as they're going to get, and you've got obviously issues with wages, and then you start feeling really nervous. So for an economy that's going really well, we're feeling very, very crappy about life, and head that into an election. How on earth Bill Shorten and Scott Morrison deal with those sorts of things to put a plan together where you can actually get to issues that hurt and help people's hip pockets? It's going to be really interesting.
Speaking of feeling the pressure, maybe slightly more humorous, isn't it? Everyone understands the phrase FOMO, fear of missing out, but now there's a new one, care of model Leomi Anderson. He's used this one in a recent column online. It's FOMO, FOMO, MG. I don't even know how you say it, but the fear of missing out on my goals. This is apparently a millennial thing. You know, people are concerned about achieving personal targets, and they're all stressed and anxious if they don't get to 30 and they've got 3 kids and a successful job and a CEO role and all the rest of it. What do you do when you're feeling the pressure, Claire?
Just lower your expectations. Just don't expect as much out of life, I reckon.
It's this very millennial thing.
If you're always surprised on the upside, then, you know, life's pretty good. But I mean, crazy ideas that you're going to be married by a certain time or a millionaire by 25, or I mean, it's great to have goals and it's really good to be ambitious, but gee, younger people these days, they put so much pressure on themselves, and I don't quite understand that need to just be somewhere that, you know.
Social media's, I guess,
is one of the reasons I think this happens. There's multiple reasons. I think there's higher incomes now that are, you know, young people actually have access to disposable income that we couldn't have imagined even a few years ago. So they, and of course then brands target them with their messages and their imagery. They follow celebrities and influencers in a way that probably wasn't possible before the internet and social media. And then they see what everybody else is posting on social as well. And let's face it, most of us show our best lives on social. We don't show the tough times we're having in our lives. So you get a filtered view of the world through all these factors, and I think it does put pressure on teenagers, particularly, and coming to your early 20s. There's a lot of pressure already, and this probably makes it even worse.
Do you in your own life set particular goals? I don't think you sound like you do, Claire. Do you have very defined goals? Do you have defined goals? Do you?
To an extent, yeah. I'm not super goal driven, but I find that it's good to have at least a sort of 3-year window on what I want to get to in the next 3 years. That's worked pretty well.
And what about when you're feeling the pressure? What do you do?
I run. That's my thing. Yeah, go for a run or spend time with my family.
And take yourself off social media?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. You're on detox at the moment, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Facebook. I was there for a long time. I lived in Facebook, inside of Facebook for years. But since I left Facebook, I probably have spent probably reduced my use of social media by about 90%. And that doesn't mean that social's not good and people don't enjoy it. It's just I went through a really intense time. Now I'm spending a little time off those platforms, and it hasn't hurt me. I'll probably go back on again and spend more time. But I'm old-fashioned. I believe in also face-to-face human interactions as well. And luckily, my family and friends live close to me, so they're easy to see.
Well, we've loved having you guys face-to-face in the studio. Thank you. So there's the advice, millennials. Lower the expectations. Have a bit of a detox from social media. You'll be just right. Thank you, guys.